A small girl with silver hair stands at the church doors addressing the reverend, humbly asking if she may come in and pray. The priest is absolutely sure this is their first meeting, yet he realizes that he somehow knows who this girl is. He understands that she is someone who will save the world by performing many a miracle. The man recognizes her as Laurel the Saint. He then recalls his past life, remembering he was a working adult who spent his free time gaming. The former office worker had played everything from orthodox RPGs to games, until one day when he suffered a heart attack. He remembers falling down where he stood and losing consciousness on the street. When his eyes opened again, found himself reborn in a mysterious world as the fifth son of a noble family. The boy found it chaotic at first being thrust into a world of swords and magic, but he knew one has to live their life no matter the world. Thus, without a clear idea of why he was reborn, more than 10 years have passed as he began living a leisurely life as a country priest. The young girl walks solemnly through the church, her soft footsteps pattering on the floor as she approaches the serene statue at the altar. Is taken aback by this encounter, wondering to himself who would have thought he would have such a meeting in this temple. He realizes with dawning certainty that there is no mistake. This girl is the heroine of the game, the Beyond painted in rainbow. She is Laurel, the one known as the Saint. The priest recalls from the game's plot that she has come here to mourn the death of her mother. His prayer, he knows, will turn into light that returns to the earth and becomes divine protection for the people. Finally understands that he is the nameless, unimportant priest who discovers Saint in this game world. After her fervent prayer, the young girl collapses forward onto the rug in exhaustion. As she puts on her worn shoes to leave, thanks the reverend and hopes her prayer will be enough for her mom to finally rest. Quickly catches her as she suddenly stumbles, shouting a sharp, "Careful," as he holds her steady. Holding the trembling girl, observes her unkempt hair and worn-out clothes, thinking how frail and beaten down she looks just after her prayer. He reflects with a troubled gaze that he never knew the saint would turn out to be such a pitiable girl. Startled by his touch, suddenly pushes away from him and apologizes profusely, exclaiming that she is very sorry. She prostrates herself on the floor, begging for forgiveness and berating herself for making the reverend worry. Looks down at her for a moment before calmly reassuring the girl that it is all right since they are in the goddess's home. He explains with a gentle expression that this is a place where everyone is offered a helping hand, asking if she would like to rest with some tea. The flustered girl protests that she is barely presentable and dirty from not being able to wash, but simply tells her that he does not mind. He then changes the subject by gently asking how an apple pie sounds. Immediately and ravenously devours the pie he offers her. Watching her eat at the table, he smiles softly to himself, thinking that the poor girl is clearly incredibly hungry. Recalls that the game, The Beyond painted in rainbow, is a romantic fantasy in which Saint finds love while saving the world. He remembers from the game's story that was abused by her father in an awful environment, and his role as a nameless priest was simply to send her to the capital as a saint. The priest contemplates with a grim expression that if things follow the story, she will receive even more severe abuse disguised as training, making him question if that is a good choice. Her delighted exclamation that the pie is so tasty pulls him from his dark thoughts. Watching her eat, clenches his fist, realizing he knows what awaits the girl and concluding that sending her to that place would be the worst possible decision. His eyes narrowing with resolve, he decides what the only thing he can do in that case is. When asks if he is okay, the reverend waves off her concern and tells her she can have seconds if she likes, to which she enthusiastically agrees. He then mentions that he still hasn't heard her name, prompting the girl to introduce herself as and say it's okay for him to call her that. Then formally introduces himself, explaining that he just started working as a priest there this month. With a gentle, grateful smile while clutching her pie, she asks him to excuse her bluntness before speaking. Looks across the table and asks if she would like to start working at this temple, an offer that leaves her completely stunned. He explains that judging by her earlier prayer, he can see her becoming a member of the clergy one day and suggests she learn the holy arts while working there as a sister. With a glint of determination in his eyes, reaffirms his decision to himself, thinking that he will protect. He plans to take her in right now, protect and raise her as a father would, and teach her the holy arts for self-defense, certain it is the best choice for her sake. A hesitant gets up from her seat, asking if he is sure and if he doesn't mind having someone like her there. Taking her small hands in his, looks at her gently and says that he needs her, asking her to just be with him unless she is against it. Overwhelmed by his kindness, the young girl's face crumples as she lets out a choked sob. She immediately throws herself into his arms and begins to cry loudly, releasing all her pent-up emotions. As a new day dawns, bright orbs of light float peacefully in the air above the small country church. Sometime later, a soaked and flustered stammers in surprise, questioning if he just offered her a bath. Fidgeting shyly, admits to the reverend that she has never been in a bath before. She insists that divine punishment would follow if someone like her used the bath and offers to wash at the well, but he firmly refuses, stating that the night is too cold. Internally curses the situation, wanting her to bathe in the tub but feeling worried since she has no experience using one. The priest continues to ponder how he can resolve this problem while a nervous looks on. A brief thought of them bathing together flashes through his mind as a possible solution. He immediately shakes the idea away, thinking to himself that it's dangerous and he can almost smell a crime there. Looking down with a blush, then timidly suggests that she will use the bath if the reverend accompanies her. A flustered is taken aback by her proposition, stammering that bathing together is kind of. She panics and apologizes profusely, assuming he's against bathing with a dirty girl, prompting him to shout that he would never think something like that. Trying to sound reassuring despite his own embarrassment, declares that it's okay and they will take a bath together so he can teach her how to use a bath properly. The steaming wooden tub stands ready in the bathhouse. As shyly holds a towel to her chest, tries to reassure her that it is nothing to worry about. He then pulls the cloth from her back to begin washing her, his eyes widening in shock at what is revealed. The young girl's back is covered in a horrifying network of old, crisscrossing scars. With a look of profound empathy softening his gaze, he tells her softly that she did a good job enduring this. The priest then places one hand over his heart, extends the other towards her, and utters a single word of power: heal. A gentle, warm light envelops her body as the magic takes effect, mending the skin. Turning back to the reverend with wide eyes, tells him that her body feels different and she no longer feels the dampness on her back. She touches her now smooth shoulder, explaining that where it was once itchy, painful, and miserable, she now feels comfortable and at ease. Looking up at him with innocent confusion, the girl tentatively asks if she has become odd somehow. Replies gently that this is how things should be, explaining that what is truly odd is considering pain to be ordinary. The reverend then instructs her to please sit on the stool so he can wash her. As he gently washes her hair, closes her eyes in contentment while he asks if the water is too hot. She happily wiggles her toes and remarks that it is nice and warm, playfully asking if this is his power too, which he denies with a small laugh. After some time, announces that there she goes, all nice and clean now. The young girl then stares at her clean reflection in the mirror with a look of pure astonishment. Her hand reaching for the glass, she wonders aloud if that is really her, while affirms that she has become so pretty, adding that this is how she ought to look. Overwhelmed with emotion, suddenly splashes back into the water, prompting a startled to ask what is wrong with her all of a sudden. Later that starry night, the priest and the young girl are seen sleeping soundly together in the same bed. Waking up beside the peacefully sleeping girl, runs a hand through his hair with a resigned sigh, thinking that he figured this would happen and that it is rather careless of her to sleep with a man she just met, no matter how kind he is. Begins to toss and turn in her sleep, murmuring fretfully that she doesn't like it and that she hates pain. As watches with a somber expression, she continues to cry out in her nightmare, begging not to be left alone because it hurts and she is lonely. He leans over the distressed girl and whispers gently not to worry, reassuring her that he is right there with her. The priest then sits up and extends his hand, softly casting a healing spell called Mind Cure. A gentle light envelops as her troubled expression finally eases, the magic calming her restless sleep. Gently strokes her forehead, telling the sleeping girl that everything is okay and that all of her struggles will definitely be rewarded. He acknowledges to himself that while she has likely experienced pain akin to walking on a road covered in rose thorns, her misfortunes end right here. The priest vows that all she needs to do now is live and collect the happiness she lost, enjoying tasty meals, warm baths, and sound, worry-free sleep. He gently tucks the blanket around her, thinking that this is, after all, how a child should live. Watches her sleep peacefully, certain that she will surely find her happiness and become a heroine that everyone will envy the moment they see her. He looks down at her with a gentle smile, thinking that someday the day will come when she will leave him and fall in love with the person she is destined to be with. The priest softly tells her not to worry for now and to sleep well, vowing to himself that he will make sure she is able to do so. His mind drifts back to her past, remembering that those hellish days were filled with nothing but misery and pain. She was locked up in a small storage room exposed to the cold wind, and the single daily meal consisted of nothing more than hard bread and spoiled soup. The cruel treatment also included being forced to perform exhausting chores and being unreasonably rebuked, shouted at, whipped, and beaten. Cruel words echoed in her memory as she was berated to stop dawdling, called worthless trash, and told to shut up for crying because she was annoying. She had truly believed that those hellish days would never end. Yet a gentle voice now echoes in her mind, telling her that it is all right and that all is okay. His kind face appears in her thoughts, reassuring her not to worry because he is right there with her. A glimmer of light and newfound hope reflects in her wide eyes. Wakes up with wide eyes to find herself in bed next to, who lets out a soft sound in his sleep. She sits up and looks down at her own hands in silence, seemingly processing the peaceful night she just had. The priest then rolls over in his sleep, turning his back towards her as he settles more comfortably. Memories of the reverend's kindness and gentle smiles from the previous day flash through her mind. Seeking comfort, snuggles up against his back, murmuring to herself how warm the reverend is. With a look of deep affection and newfound security, she repeatedly whispers his name, Lord. As the morning sun rises over the country church, continues to sleep soundly in his bed. The priest begins to stir from his sleep, letting out a questioning sound as he turns his head. He is met with the sight of snuggled tightly against his back, nuzzling him affectionately in her sleep. Looks down at the sleeping girl with a relieved expression, thinking that he took her in to protect her from further abuse, but for a second he thought he had committed a grave sin. Watches her sleep, reflecting on her destiny as Saint, the protagonist who will one day grow up to save the world and fall in love with one of the handsome men. He knows it would normally be outrageous for a simple mob priest to take her in like this, but his eyes snap open with resolve as he declares to himself that he does not regret it one bit. The priest resolves to raise the young, weak, and protect her until the time comes for her to take her place in the main story at the academy. He then gently wakes the girl, telling that it is morning, and she stirs with a sleepy sound in response. The young girl sits up with a big yawn, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. Blinking away her drowsiness, she asks if he is Lord, and he cheerfully confirms that it's him. With another big, happy yawn, stretches and leans comfortably against his shoulder. Is immediately flustered by the close contact, letting out a surprised yelp. He frantically thinks to himself that the situation was dangerous and he wouldn't have been able to withstand the temptation if he were much to the girl's innocent confusion. Trying to regain his composure, the priest suggests they change her clothes, only to realize with a start that it is a problem because he does not have any girl's clothes in the house. Tugging on the oversized shirt she is wearing, tells a surprised that she is fine with these clothes and likes them very much. She then buries her face into the fabric with a contented blush, explaining that his smell calms her down. A slightly flustered accepts her reasoning for the moment, deciding that he can just buy her proper clothes later. He pinches the bridge of his nose in frustration, thinking that the situation looks suspicious as hell and that he cannot let anyone else see her like this. The sun shines brightly in the sky as a new day properly begins. Dressed in his priest robes and ready to leave, reassures her that he will be back by noon, and a sad-looking asks him to please come back soon. The walk through the quiet village is a somber one as it pains him to leave home alone, but he knows he cannot bring her where he is going. The priest reflects on their location, the town of a typical country village east of the kingdom and the place where he was assigned to work. His journey leads him before trading, a large merchant house that serves as the cornerstone of the town, and confirms to himself that this is the place. A cold resolve fills his eyes as he recalls the grim fact that this company is run by his father, the very man who abused her. Inside the lavishly decorated merchant house, ornate vases and sparkling chandeliers line the rooms. His father greets the priest with a wide, oily smile and open arms, exclaiming what a surprise it is to see Reverend and welcoming him to his humble abode. Maintains a polite smile, thinking to himself that this man must be his father and that his face looks even more punchable than it did in the game's CGs. He gets straight to the point, informing the merchant about the reason for his visit and stating that his daughter, Miss, has come to the temple he oversees. The man feigns a look of weary concern, sighing as he says it seems his daughter has caused the Reverend some trouble. He continues his act, complaining that the child of his mistress causes a disturbance every day and that despite his strict upbringing, she still can't master basic manners, making him wish he hadn't bothered raising her. His internal thoughts turn venomous as he calls the man a stinking piece of shit, questioning if he's trying to justify starvation and abuse by calling it strictness. Still smiling pleasantly, the priest calmly informs the merchant that he is aware of all his misdeeds committed for the sole purpose of enriching himself, and vows to make him pay for them in the future before cheerfully returning to the topic of. He explains that as soon as he learned of her aptitude for the holy arts, he thought about taking her in at his temple, cutting off the merchant who had started to mutter about wanting to sell her someday. Feigning a thoughtful expression, his father then claims that as a father, he has some reservations about simply giving his daughter away. A heavy pouch of money lands forcefully on the table. Presents the money with a sly smile as payment to cover costs, leaving his father stunned by the rather hefty sum. The merchant greedily agrees that is worth it with no regrets, as the priest internally notes that this was almost all the money his family gave him. He then comments with a hint of sarcasm that it is all honestly rather surprising. Her father leans forward with a lecherous grin, wondering who knew the Reverend had such refined tastes since the girl is nothing but skin and bones and he could have found a much better one with that money. A tight, forced smile remains on his face as he silently endures the man's vile words. The priest internally vows that one day, he will definitely put the son of a bitch behind bars. Having concluded his business, he makes his way back to the peaceful country church. Announcing his return is immediately greeted by a surprised, who offers him a warm welcome home while washing a cloth in a bucket. He notices she was in the middle of cleaning and tells her there was no need to bother herself, causing the startled girl to let out a small gasp. With a worried expression, apologizes for cleaning without asking permission, explaining that she just thought she could be helpful in some way. Gently pats her head and reassures the girl that he is not angry with her, adding that her help was really appreciated and thanking her so much. He then cheerfully remarks that thanks to her, the place has become so clean and beautiful. The priest's smile fades into a look of shock as he takes in the impossibly sparkling chapel, wondering aloud if it isn't a bit too clean. Beams with pride as he continues to stare in disbelief, noting that the 50-year-old temple now looks as immaculate as if it were just built. Looking up in awe, touches a wall that seems to shine on its own, questioning if it could be the radiance of divine power. He gazes at the gleaming statue of the goddess, feeling a solemn air and divine brilliance that confirms for him that this must be the goddess's blessing. The priest turns back to the girl and asks her what she did here, to which calmly replies that she cleaned everything as she usually does. She immediately begins to panic, her eyes welling with tears as she asks if she did something wrong and frantically stammers denials. Quickly changes his tone, spreading his arms wide with a bright smile to reassure her that he is really glad the chapel is so much cleaner and was just surprised by how beautiful it is. Expresses her relief with a bright smile, saying she is glad and happy that Lord is pleased, while he internally dismisses the chapel being cleaner than anticipated as no big deal. As the girl stretches happily in the background, racks his brain with a puzzled expression, certain that there was no such miracle occurring in the game, even if was cleaning. The church bell rings loudly, signaling the start of the afternoon. Holding a small cloth encourages Lord to do his best during his afternoon work, and he tells her he will be cleaning the back rooms, advising her not to overwork herself and to rest once in a while. The priest informs her that he is heading to the chapel now, and she enthusiastically sees him off, declaring that she will make dinner. As stands at the entrance thinking he should have rested more, a group of villagers greets the young reverend and asks if they can pray again today. One of the women in the group comments that the air today feels different than usual, and he simply explains that he did a little cleaning in the morning. She then touches her lower back in astonishment, exclaiming that for some reason the pain there has stopped. An old man finds his knees feel healthier while another man flexes, saying the stiffness in his shoulders has disappeared, and they turn to a flustered to ask if this is also the goddess's blessing. The peaceful moment is shattered when two adventurers burst in, one shouting for help and begging the reverend to heal his companion's wound because a monster in the forest almost killed him. Rushes to the gravely injured adventurer, the villagers gathering around in a state of panic and concern. He assesses the wound with grave urgency, realizing the situation is serious and that the man will not survive without immediate treatment. The priest's confidence wavers as he questions if he can even heal such a severe wound, knowing it is a tall order for his underdeveloped holy arts. Meanwhile, in another part of the church, diligently continues her cleaning, carefully wiping down a window. Surrounded by glowing orbs of divine energy, she pauses her work with a thoughtful expression, sensing that something is happening with Lord. Hearing the commotion from the prayer hall, the young girl wonders if something has happened. She hesitates with a sad look, believing that even if she goes there, she will only be a bother to Lord. With renewed determination, the girl decides it is better to just focus on her cleaning and to do her duties well. Taking a bite of bread, she puts her faith in him, believing that if it is Lord, everything will surely be fine because he is such a great priest. Her eyes widen as she suddenly spots Lord through the window, calling out his name in her thoughts as he walks past. A brilliant light suddenly erupts from the country church. Surrounded by the villagers' desperate pleas for help, a sweating extends his hand and casts the heal spell. A powerful flash of divine energy bursts from his hand, leaving the adventurers completely stunned by the unexpected display. The gravely wounded man looks down in disbelief to see his chest completely healed and sparkling with light, prompting him to exclaim in shock. He leaps to his feet and flexes his muscles with a mighty roar, his companions shouting in amazement that it is a miracle and that even the scars are totally gone. The villagers are overcome with emotion, with the old man declaring that he has never seen such healing even at the capital's great temple, while the young adventurer exclaims that the reverend is amazing. As the cheerful villagers celebrate around him, a bewildered wonders what just happened, knowing he is not supposed to possess this kind of power. The words goddess's blessing echo in his mind, sparking a sudden realization. The priest looks around the gleaming prayer hall, starting to wonder if this incredible power is thanks to the chapel being cleaned by. Comes to a stunning conclusion, realizing that after cleaned it, the chapel must have become filled with the goddess's blessing, unconsciously giving a holy buff to his healing magic. Reasons that it would make sense if this was power, but he remains puzzled, thinking that she shouldn't possess such immense power at her young age. Unaware of the commotion she caused, the young girl happily continues her chores, humming a tune as she wipes down the windows. As evening approaches, the sky over the country church begins to darken. The priest announces that he is home, finding humming contentedly as she stirs a pot in the kitchen. She turns with a bright smile to thank Lord for his hard work, and he comments that the stew smells delicious. The steaming pot looks incredibly appetizing as she hopes the taste suits his palate and invites him to eat. Before their meal, the priest says a prayer of thanks to both the goddess and for the day's blessings, and she happily repeats his bon. Then takes his first spoonful of the stew she prepared. His eyes snap open in utter shock at the incredible taste. He is completely overwhelmed by the gentle flavor that spreads through his mouth, a perfect blend of beef's deliciousness hidden within the sweetness of the vegetables. He continues to savor the meal, noting the spicy stimulation from the spices and how the various herbs blend together to create a rich, curry-like flavor. The priest finds it impossible to believe a stew could have such a deep flavor, questioning if this child really made it and where she got the spices and beef from. Interrupting her meal, asks where she got the ingredients for the stew, and she simply replies that she used what was on the table. The girl immediately panics, asking if she wasn't supposed to use them and stammering that it's okay because they were ingredients for dinner anyway. He is left completely baffled, certain that he only bought vegetables at the time and wondering where the spices and beef came from. Looking at the glowing orbs floating in the room, his eyes widen as he wonders if they could possibly be holy spirits. He recalls from his knowledge that they are known as messengers of the goddess, a lower form of angel said to only appear before priests of high virtue. The priest asks if she sees something over there and she looks around before replying that it's nothing, prompting him to agree. One of the small orbs suddenly flits between them as he lets out a sound of realization. With a sudden poof, the Holy Spirit transforms into a large, fresh fish. Stares in shock as a fish appears out of thin air and plops right into the stew pot. Unnervous quickly dismisses the swimming fish as nothing when he calls her name in confusion. He puts a thoughtful hand to his chin, realizing that the Holy Spirits are secretly protecting, and even bringing her food ingredients without revealing themselves to her. The priest finds this development puzzling, as this was something that should never have happened in the game. He reflects on the recent chain of events, the prayer hall shining, his holy power becoming stronger, and now even the Holy Spirits bringing food. Staring at the teary-eyed girl, begins to worry about how many miracles he has witnessed in just one day and wonders if his actions have somehow messed with the balance of this world. Noticing his strange behavior, trembles as she asks if she has done something wrong, but he quickly reassures her that she is not at fault at all. He explains with a cheerful smile that stew was so delicious that he lost his composure and got a bit too excited. The girl is overjoyed by his praise and declares that from now on she will cook every day, prompting him to think that if she is happy with this, then it is enough. Then thoughtfully considers what to cook for breakfast, suggesting that since they ate meat today, fish might be better for tomorrow as more fish suddenly pop into existence behind. As they continue their meal, smiles to himself, hoping the meat and fish are not stolen by the Holy Spirits and deciding it should be fine since they are gifts. A tranquil afternoon settles over the small country church. A few days later, the priest extends an invitation to, asking how she would feel about them going out together today. Holding a book at the table, she looks up at him with a surprised expression. The girl jumps to her feet with an excited gasp, asking if she is really allowed to go out, to which he calmly replies, "Of course." Explains with a slightly weary smile that while he has kept her cooped up for quite a long time, it seems to be okay now. He reflects that over the past few days has become much healthier, sleeping soundly, eating well and doing chores with cheerful energy, which might also be a miracle of the saintess. With a confident smile, the priest thinks to himself that with current condition, people will not be suspicious even if she walks outside. He then cheerfully suggests that while they are out, they should buy all the necessary supplies they need, and she enthusiastically agrees. The charming rooftops of the small town are seen under a bright, clear sky. Walking through the bustling marketplace, looks around with wide-eyed excitement as reminds her to be careful not to get lost. Her gaze falls upon a happy young boy asking his papa what something is, and his father gently tells him not to go too far or he'll get lost. The heartwarming sight of the father and son holding hands seems to deeply affect the young girl. She keeps glancing over at the priest's hand with a hesitant look, prompting him to call her name in concern. Noticing her longing gaze, kindly extends his hand and asks if she would mind holding it so they don't get separated. With a joyful cry of "yeah," immediately grasps his offered hand with a bright, blushing smile. Her eyes fill with happy tears as she looks up at him with a grateful expression, her heart fluttering as she whispers his name. The girl now walks beside him with a happy hum, her hand held securely in his as they continue through the market. She then turns to him and asks what they should buy first, to which he replies with a thoughtful, "Oh, right." The priest then suggests that since she is always so diligent in cleaning the prayer hall and even cooks delicious food every day, he should first give her a small thank you. Looks up at him with wide, innocent eyes, repeating his words and questioning what he means by a thank you. Looks around the market for a moment before spotting a particular shop with a nice sign that catches his eye. He then turns to the awestruck girl and announces that as her thank you, they will buy new clothes for her at the Rose Garden clothing store.